Well, for this video, we're going to be talking about sticks and stones, mostly sticks. Sticks being these little Japanese ceramic texturing sticks. Call them, they're a little ceramic stick with little fine grits of abrasive in them, ranging in grit from 120 grit all the way up to 1200 grit. So there's a good range. They do much the same thing that has traditionally been done with texturing stones. I've just got a little selection here that kind of just briefly touch on these. I won't be talking so much about the stones today, but I just want to make the comparison. The texturing stones are typically available in a variety of different colors. The color has to do with the coarseness. And what we carry is we carry the finest ones are the white Arkansas stones. And then the green and some people call these red. They're kind of a brown stone. We call them brown. These are very similar in terms of how aggressive and how coarse they are. And then there's the ceramic cut blue stones that are a synthetic ceramic type stone, and they're available in a variety of coarsenesses. Like some of them are coarser than others. You can tell by looking at them. Like this cylinder here is fairly coarse, and the other cylinder beside it, you can actually see the difference in how coarse the stones are. There's a fine stone and a coarse one. So they make a bit of variety in these ceramic cut blue stones. Um, Stones typically are, when you get them, they don't run perfectly true. You have to kind of true them up and shape them, do a little bit of work to them. But they're kind of the go-to for a little bit of carving, but mostly for texturing. A lot of bird carvers in particular use stones like this for texturing. And quite a few years ago, the Japanese texturing stones, or sticks, came onto the market, and they're a little bit more of an investment when you buy them. But in the long run, over the life of the tool, they're nicer to use, and they're probably as economical or more economical than the stones are. I'll just talk a little about using them. What they are is this is a 400 grit ceramic texturing stick. They're roughly 5 centimeters long. They come out of Japan, so they're all metric in terms of their length, but they're a 3/32 inch diameter. So they'll go straight into your micromotor tool or your Fordham collet or whatever the case may be. In this case, we can even put it into a little cordless carving tool like this. It has a 3/32 inch collet. We'll be doing that shortly. Um, but when people buy these, because they're a little more expensive than buying a stone or a couple of stones, but we've had this from a number of customers. When you go to put this into your tool and use it, it does stick out quite a bit. And like even when you push it in as far as it goes, still sticks out quite a bit. And people kind of wonder about this. And what I do though is I actually take these things and I buy them, I cut them in half. Here's a 120 grit stone or stick that I had bought some time ago, and I've cut this one in half. And the beautiful thing about this is it allows you to actually, you've got four different ends now that you can. So it's like having four stones. This is the same basically as buying four texturing stones. Now you've got different ends on it. So I just wanted to go over a little bit about the process of preparing that. So to cut these in half, what I do is I just mark in where my halfway point is, pencil or marker or something that you can see. So you can see that on there. And to cut them in half, I need two tools, and you can use an electric drill for this if you want. I've just, for the sake of simplicity, I've got my little cordless carving tool here, and I'll just put it in there. So now when I turn this on, um, I have it spinning. It's spinning right. Excuse me. It's spinning right now, so you can actually see the little mark here, which is the halfway point. And in order to cut it, what I do is I take another tool, and I've got just my micromotor tool here. You could use any rotary tool, and I put a little cutoff wheel on this. I find these work really well. I don't have to have it going very fast. I'll set it about 15,000 RPM. Turn my little cutoff wheel on here, and then you can see when I go to cut this. Um, I've got my safety glasses on. You can't see them, but when I go to cut this, I just put that in there and I wiggle it back and forth this way just lightly so that the wheel doesn't bind in the cutoff thing. And I go down until I've gotten into the middle there. You can see I've cut well in. Turn this off. and then just break it off. So now I've got this little ceramic stick cut in half, and I can smooth off the end of it just with the edge of my cutoff wheel. I'll do the same thing. I'll turn this back on and I'll smooth off the end of the other end of this with my cutoff wheel just to square it up. So you can see that's square now. So now when I take that out, I've got two little short ceramic texturing sticks now, and they can be used directly into your micromotor tool. General rule of thumb on ceramic texturing sticks is you usually want to run them as fast as you possibly can. Like if you've got a micromotor that goes up to 50,000 RPM, they work really well at 50,000 or 40,000, whatever works for you. Some tools 35,000, but you want to generally, most of the time, want them running flat out. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one of these sticks into my micromotor tool. I want to leave a little bit hanging out. Set these guys back off to the side. I'm done with them for now. And the other trick when you're using these is to get a little fine diamond hone like this. These are quite important, whether you're using stones or sticks or whatever you're using. Even if you're using like I've got a brown texturing stone here, and this stone has been shaped and dressed and everything using a diamond wheel like this, or a diamond hone like this. These diamond hones are, to me, they're essential when you're using texturing sticks or stones. So now what you can do with these is you get this running at, usually run it at an operating speed. So I'll set it at 40,000 RPM. It's running now at 40,000 RPM. And to true up the end on these, you can just run the disc into the texturing hone there, and that will dress the end on this and put a nice square sharp edge on it. For doing the actual texture, when you're going to put some texture into a surface of a bird or whatever you're putting your texture into, hair on an animal or anything like that, you can actually use this sharp corner now. This is the 400 grit stick. It's working really nicely on basswood right now. So if I bring that in fairly close, get our focus, you can see the texture that it's imparting there. It also works quite well sometimes for, for things like just cleaning up around like a very fine controllable type of cutter for cleaning up and working on like the separation on the bill for, sometimes even working around eyes and things like that. But it works beautifully for just fine little textures. So you can see what I've done there with just imparting a bit of texture onto it. That's just with a square corner like that. So the other thing that I want to do now is some other ends and some other shapes that kind of come in handy. So I've got that end squared off. I'll turn this around and come back to this end. So I can shape this basically to whatever I want using my diamond hone here. And one of the things that I've done, like on my green courser, the little courser one that I've got here, you see the one end is square and the other end has been sort of shaped like almost like a bullet shape. And that's pretty straightforward to do. You just take your hone, and I'm going to turn on my dust collector here. You just take your hone and you just keep on going along here till you get the shape that you want. So you can see this is still a little tiny bit flat on the end, so I'll just keep on going until I get what I want that way. So now I've got a little bit more of a bullet shape on the end of this, and places where I can use that is, again, working around, smoothing things off around the eye, a little cleanup, fine cleanup, almost like a little smoothing, sanding thing, because this 400 grit stick isn't going to leave very much in the way of tool marks. You can also use it for, it is possible to put softer, more subtle texture in on something. It almost polishes it up. See, you come into a corner like that. I use this quite often when you're like, if you've got a little indent somewhere, like a little place. I don't have much on here, but a little place where you've got feathers overlapping and you really want to smooth things off. Like this 400 grit will give you, see how smooth and shiny that ends up getting. So, depending on how coarse the cutter is, a lot of times with these, you want actually a bit of a corner on it, but this one, I've left a bullet shape on the end. Beautiful thing is if you don't like that, you can always change it. You can always put a little bit of a flat end on it and use it for texturing. I was going to show you also on my other two ends here. The one thing that I do a lot with these texturing sticks is I'll turn one end into a really pointy little, just a little taper. So turn it into a little bit of a taper like that, and then using the edge of this, just keep going down until I get this taper as small as I want it. Square up the end a little bit. So now you see what a tiny little taper end that I put on there. And for doing really super fine little detail stuff, it's hard to beat something like this, because now you've got a little texturing tool that is really smaller and finer than anything you're going to find that you'll be able to accomplish with an actual texturing stone. So the stick will allow you to get finer than that. So you can see some of the little tiny textures that I put up at the base of that eye. And, even for getting into tight little areas, like you have to get into a little inside corner where, you just don't have a lot of access. A little tiny texturing stick like this can really do a good job on getting some of your texture in place. See if we can get that. There we go. You can see the texture that's been put in there. These can be used and used almost like in the coarser grits, 400, 300, 180, 120. They can also be used for carving, a certain amount of carving. I'll flip this one over, and the last thing I'm going to do with this texturing stick is I'm going to create a little inverted cone with it. So some people like having a really sharp edge of an inverted cone, like a stone that's got like an inverted cone shape, kind of like this, where you've got a sharp edge. I tend not to use these sharp edges very much on my texturing, because what they do is they create a sharp bottom valley when you're making texture. And I generally want soft, round valley bottoms. I want sharp peaks on my texture. And so having a stick that has a really sharp edge on it is counterproductive for what I want to do. But there may be applications where you want to have an inverted cone. So I square up the edge, and then I'll just take my cone here and just use the edge of it to shape my texturing stick so that it becomes kind of a inverted cone. I go on far enough to make sure that corner there is nice and sharp. So now if I do have some texturing that I want to do that requires me um, to make sharper, more kind of harsh, deeper lines, this is a lot more aggressive when you get a sharp corner on it like this. You can see how how that texture looks when you get a deeper, sharper texture. And, they can be used for kind of cleaning up and undercutting. You can use the edge of it for getting in here, cleaning up and undercutting the edge of a wing. See how that just kind of smooths everything right out. So there's a variety of things that they can be used for. If you want to do sharper, more distinct lines, something coarser on a bigger bird, that's where you may want to use inverted cone like this. And the 400 grit, this little 400 grit works really well. It's a nice average. My favorites typically are the 300 and 400 grit. I do have this is the 120, and I use that one quite a bit, especially with this little flame shaped end for carving. It works really, really well. So here's what I've got. I've got whatever sanding or ceramic stick you end up with. I suggest you cut it in half, and now you've got 4 different ends that you can work with. I've got an inverted cone. I have a really tiny, fine little taper here with a square edge. I have a regular cylinder, and then we have here, yeah, my bullet shape, and then the little cylinder here. So they will replace a number of different kinds of stones, like your regular blue or brown stone that you've got is replaced by just a cylinder like that. And then this little fine cylinder, you can't really do that with a stone very well. Stones are too brittle, they tend to break. Something like this, you can get stones that have that shape, but it's going to be hard to get something that's that fine and that small. And then other stones like sort of a flame shape or something that's going to give you the ability to carve with it. There are stones available like that, that you can shape and dress is going to give you a similar type thing to your kind of bullet shape. So that kind of covers the basics on texturing sticks. We'll do a little thing on various other tools and techniques over the next little while. I am going to, before I finish this up, I'll just show you, if you've got a stone like this, when you first turn these stones on, they're vibrating. They're not running perfectly true, and this is where your diamond comes in handy like this. Just set the diamond on there and just give them a little bit of a touch. You can shape them, like you can shape a stone the same way, however you want. So when I first turned this on, it's running at 40,000 RPM right now. When I touched this stone to my finger, it really a lot of vibration and you could really tell. So now that I've dressed it, I touch it, I can hardly even tell that it's running. It's just, it runs so smooth. And that's the trick with any of the mounted points, any stones, whether they're the blue, green, doesn't really matter. This is one that I've been using in the classroom for quite a while. We've been texturing with it, and to clean them up if they start not cutting as well as they did, just give them a little light touch to the stone like that, and they're all cleaned up and ready to go. So whether using stones or sticks, little ceramic plate like this, a fine one, is really, really handy. I have found, we cut them with this kind of a wheel, and these will work too. They're just not near as fast or as aggressive or predictable. The diamond is a good way to go. So hopefully that kind of gives you some good information on some of the techniques that are used in texturing with sticks and stones. And got any questions? Give us a call at Maple and Bass. Send us an email, and we'd be more than happy to look after you. Thanks for watching.